Welcome, dear listeners, to another episode of our scary stories. I'm your host, always ready to guide you through the dimly lit corridors of the unknown. We gather here on the precipice of reality, teetering on the edge, peering into the abyss of the unknown, the uncanny, the terrifying. Tonight, we plunge headfirst into the shadows, where reality is distorted and nightmares come to life. This is no ordinary tale. It is a chilling saga of an idyllic town named Harbor Ridge, facing a nightmarish ordeal that defies the boundaries of our understanding. Let the darkness envelop you. Listen carefully as we narrate the story of UFO Infectus, the Harbor Ridge mutation nightmare. In the quiet town of Harbor Ridge, nestled between dense evergreen forests and a serene mountain range, life was a sequence of predictably pleasant days. Dusk was settling, painting the sky in shades of lavender and gold as townsfolk trickled into their warm, inviting homes. Streetlights began to blink awake, casting long, flickering shadows that danced with the rhythmic whispering of the trees in the evening breeze. In the center of this quaint serenity lived four friends: Dr. Amelia Turner, Sheriff Joe Baker, high school science teacher Edgar Redwood, and local mechanic Jenna Watts. Their homes, a comfortable array of 20th century architecture, stood around the main square, each reflecting the personality of its occupant. Dr. Turner's home, a white colonial-style house with navy shutters, resonated with an air of pristine orderliness. A warm glow emanated from the windows, filtering through the translucent curtains, illuminating her silhouette as she pored over her medical journals in the dim light. Sheriff Joe's residence was a sturdy cabin-like structure, rustic and reassuring like the man himself. As night settled, he sat on his porch, the wood groaning under his weight, his gaze unwavering as he looked towards the quiet town. A hot cup of coffee was his sole companion, the steam from it spiraling into the night, carrying with it the distinct scent of roasted beans that mingled with the petrichor from the nearby forest. Across the square, Edgar's Victorian house was cluttered with books, star charts, and telescopes, a labyrinth of knowledge that mirrored his voracious curiosity. Amid the scholarly chaos, he sat at his desk, his gaze lost in a sea of stars visible through the open window. The cool breeze carried the scent of ink and parchment from his desk, mixing it with the freshness of the night air. Last in the circle was Jenna's quaint cottage. In contrast to her grease-stained workshop, her home was neat and orderly. She sat in her living room, the soft hum of a radio playing classic rock tunes creating a soothing ambience. The smell of motor oil clung to her like a second skin, merging with the homely aroma of the apple pie she'd just taken out of the oven. In this tranquil setting, none of them expected the night to hold anything beyond a peaceful sleep. However, as they settled into their routines, the calm evening air was split by a roaring noise that grew louder by the second. The ground trembled slightly under their feet, the windows rattled in their frames, and an unnatural light started to paint the twilight sky in hues of eerie blue and green. They all rushed outside, their eyes drawn to the spectacle unfolding above them. A blazing object, outlined by a fiery halo, was plummeting through the night sky. Its descent was marked by a tail of smoke and fire that streaked across the sky, creating a dazzling, albeit terrifying, spectacle. The sight was mesmerizing and horrifying in equal measures. Their hearts pounded in their chests, mirroring the rhythm of the object's impending impact. The serene quiet of Harbor Ridge was replaced by a collective breath held in anticipation as the UFO hurtled towards the dense forest surrounding their town, the flash of its impact lighting up the night, leaving them all in stunned silence. Each of them was gripped by a distinct sense of foreboding as they watched smoke billow from the crash site. Little did they know that their lives and their town were about to change, setting them on a path of horror they could not yet fathom. The tranquil town of Harbor Ridge was no longer just a dot on the map. Unbeknownst to them, it had just become ground zero. The morning sun crept over the horizon, casting long shadows that seeped into every nook and cranny of Harbor Ridge. It was a typical postcard-perfect scene, the calm streets bathed in a serene golden light that sharply contrasted with the unease that had settled over the town. Dr. Amelia was the first to reach the crash site, her white coat billowing around her as she hastened through the dense forest, her heart pounding with a mix of dread and curiosity. The forest was eerily silent, the usually vibrant chirping of the birds and rustling of leaves replaced by a stifling stillness. At the edge of a newly formed crater, Amelia came to an abrupt halt, her breath hitched at the sight before her. An unfamiliar metallic object lay half buried, its smooth surface marred by scorch marks and debris. An odd blue-green substance oozed from a ruptured section of the craft, pooling onto the forest floor and giving off a faint luminescence. Simultaneously, on the other side of the town, Sheriff Joe, Edgar, and Jenna arrived, their faces etched with a shared mixture of trepidation and wonder. Edgar, usually buried in his books and theories, had never thought he would witness a scene straight out of science fiction in their quiet town. Jenna's mechanic instincts kicked in as she examined the foreign craft, her gaze scrutinizing its unearthly design. Aliens! In Harbor Ridge, Edgar muttered, his voice echoing the disbelief that hung in the air. Determined to examine the object up close, Amelia cautiously approached the UFO. The smell of scorched earth filled her nostrils, overpowering the typical forest sense of pine and damp moss. She reached out a gloved hand, the chill of the metallic surface seeping through her latex-covered fingers. Without thinking, she touched the strange liquid seeping from the craft. Its consistency was unlike anything she had ever experienced, slippery yet viscous, and its luminescence intensified upon contact. Ignoring the wave of unease that washed over her, she collected a sample, her mind already whirring with the implications of this discovery. As the day wore on, the town's small population trickled to the crash site. Faces filled with curiosity and fear watched from the safety of the forest edge, whispers of theories and potential threats filtering through the crowd. Unbeknownst to them, the real threat had already begun to infiltrate their lives in a way they could not yet see. As night fell, the four friends retreated to their homes, each carrying the weight of the day's events. As Amelia safely stowed away the alien sample in her lap, she couldn't shake off an unsettling feeling. The bright, friendly town of Harbor Ridge had overnight turned into a landscape of mystery and trepidation, and the normalcy they had known was about to descend into an unfathomable abyss of horror and chaos. They could only wait, unaware that the first seeds of a horrifying transformation had been planted. A few days passed since the crash, but the unease clung to Harbor Ridge like a dense fog, the usual tranquility replaced by an unsettling silence that permeated every corner of the town. Dr. Amelia found herself distracted, her attention persistently drawn towards the small vial containing the strange luminescent substance. It was unlike anything she had ever seen, an enigma that refused to reveal its secrets under her microscope. Meanwhile, Sheriff Joe walked the quiet streets of their town, his usual easygoing demeanor replaced by a vigilant gaze that scanned every shadow, every quiet corner. The townsfolk went about their daily lives, but a thread of worry was woven into their greetings, their smiles a bit more strained. Inside the science teacher's cluttered home, Edgar was buried deep in theories and star charts, but his thoughts were constantly interrupted by a persistent fever and an unsettling itch under his skin, a condition he attributed to the stress of the past few days. Across the town, in the warm familiarity of her workshop, Jenna worked tirelessly on a car engine, trying to drown her worries in the comforting drone of her tools. Yet, even the familiar scent of motor oil and metallic undertones couldn't help her shake off the nagging feeling of impending dread. However, the real nightmare began to unfold when Edgar started experiencing more alarming symptoms. One morning, while grading papers, he noticed a reflection in his living room mirror. His normally pale complexion seemed to have a faint blue-green hue, and there were patches on his skin that looked oddly translucent. It was a chilling sight, a grotesque mimicry of the alien substance that Amelia had collected. A wave of panic washed over him as he recalled the day of the crash. He had been one of the first to explore the wreckage, his curiosity having gotten the best of him. Could he have been infected? Without wasting any time, he rushed to Dr. Amelia's place, his heart pounding in his chest. When he arrived, Amelia was taken aback by Edgar's appearance, her medical instincts kicking into overdrive as she ushered him into her makeshift examination room. As she began to examine him, Edgar shared his fears about the possible infection. Listening to him, she felt a cold knot of dread forming in her stomach. She hoped against all odds that Edgar was wrong, but the evidence was difficult to dismiss. Outside, as the sun began to set, casting long, ominous shadows, Sheriff Joe and Jenna stood in the town square. Unbeknownst to them, they were on the precipice of a horrifying truth, a chilling transformation that would shatter their peaceful existence in Harbor Ridge. Despite their ignorance of the horror that was slowly creeping into their lives, the town was filled with a sense of dread. The usually inviting homes now seemed to close in on them, a constant reminder of the threat that had invaded their small town. The town of Harbor Ridge, once a haven of peace, was turning into a cradle for a nightmarish horror show, and its inhabitants were painfully oblivious to the terror that lay ahead. As the first signs of the dreaded transformation began to surface, the lines between reality and the grotesque were starting to blur, preparing to plunge them into an abyss they could never have imagined. As the sun gave way to the dark canvas of the night, the streets of Harbor Ridge were eerily silent, except for the ominous rustling of the trees that seemed to whisper untold secrets. The town was on edge, and as Amelia examined Edgar's disturbing transformation, the gravity of their situation began to sink in. Amelia looked at Edgar, his skin now shimmering with a strange bioluminescence similar to the substance from the UFO. It was as though his very DNA was being rewritten, introducing an alien aspect into his human form. His fever had spiked, and his once bright eyes were now clouded with pain and fear. Meanwhile, at the sheriff's office, Joe was grappling with his role in protecting his town. The tranquility he had sworn to uphold was shattering, replaced with an undercurrent of paranoia and fear. Jenna had stopped by, her usually vibrant eyes filled with concern. Her hands, typically steady and sure while working on engines, were shaking slightly, reflecting the fear that was starting to grip them all. Back at Amelia's house, the situation was deteriorating rapidly. Edgar's transformation was accelerating. The luminescence had spread throughout his body, giving him an ethereal, otherworldly appearance. As Amelia tried to contain her growing horror, Edgar cried out in agony. His human silhouette seemed to ripple, contorting and reforming into a grotesque figure that was neither fully human nor entirely alien. In the depths of the night, Jenna and Joe received Amelia's frantic call. She told them about Edgar's condition, her voice shaking with fear. As they rushed over, the dark streets seemed more foreboding than ever. The quaint charm of their town had given way to an ominous aura, each shadow seeming to hide monstrous secrets. As they arrived at Amelia's house, they were met with a sight that would haunt their nightmares. Edgar was now a horrifying hybrid, a grotesque blend of human and alien. His human features were distorted and lost in a luminescent mass of morphing flesh. The sight was enough to send chills down their spines, the reality far more terrifying than any horror tale they'd ever heard. They were faced with the cruel reality of their friend's transformation. The mild-mannered science teacher they knew was disappearing, his humanity being erased and replaced with something nightmarish. As they stood there, rooted in shock and disbelief, they realized that this was only the beginning of their ordeal. Unbeknownst to them, their once peaceful town was about to turn into a stage for a real-life horror show. As the horrifying reality of their situation settled in, they steeled themselves for the battle that lay ahead. They were now in a race against time to save their town, their friends, and themselves from a horror that seemed to have been plucked straight from the realm of science fiction. As Harbor Ridge lay shrouded in the gloom, the once familiar and welcoming homes seemed to hold their breath, a chilling testament to the monstrous transformation that had just begun. The town was changing, its tranquility shattering under the weight of an otherworldly terror, marking the beginning of a horrifying saga. The once bustling streets of Harbor Ridge now lay in an eerie quietude. As dawn broke, the unsettling events of the previous night hung heavy in the air, casting a foreboding pall over the town. Edgar's horrifying transformation had shattered their perception of reality, plunging them into a realm of terror. Within Amelia's home-turned clinic, the group was confronted with a grim reality. Edgar, their friend and colleague, was now an unrecognizable creature, his human characteristics all but consumed by the alien mutation. Despite his monstrous appearance, a faint glimmer of Edgar's personality reflected in his pained eyes, adding a chilling layer to their situation. Meanwhile, a new horror was starting to unfold. Word of the dreadful transformation spread throughout the town like wildfire. Fearful murmurs replaced friendly banter as people barricaded themselves in their homes. The once vibrant town square was now a deserted landscape, the haunting silence amplifying their fear. Sheriff Joe, despite the unimaginable circumstances, knew he had a responsibility to his town. But even his strong resolve was tested as he witnessed the mounting paranoia and fear amongst his people. Jenna, with her pragmatic mind, tried to maintain a level-headed perspective. Amidst the chaos, she took charge of analyzing the alien ship's wreckage, hoping to find something, anything, that could help them combat this unearthly threat. Back at Amelia's home, Edgar's condition continued to worsen. The transformation was now affecting his mental state. human cognition giving way to a primal and frightening alien intelligence. His once intelligent eyes now held a disconcerting blankness, a grim testament to the profound changes taking place within him. As night fell, a new horror started to unfold. Other townsfolk, those who had been close to the wreckage, began to show the same terrifying symptoms Edgar had. The virulent alien infection was spreading rapidly, taking hold of their lives and transforming their existence into a living nightmare. People transformed into grotesque hybrids, their humanity being stripped away and replaced by the alien mutation. The transformation was not just physical, it seemed to reach deep into their minds, erasing their identities and replacing them with a monstrous alien consciousness. As the town plunged deeper into horror, our trio, Amelia, Joe, and Jenna, realized they were in the eye of a growing storm. With the infection spreading unchecked, they knew they had to act fast. Harbor Ridge was not just their home, it was now ground zero for a terrifying alien invasion, an infestation that threatened to obliterate everything they held dear. As they stared into the face of this unimaginable terror, they steeled themselves for the battle ahead. Unbeknownst to them, the real horror was yet to reveal itself, threatening to transform their beloved town into a gruesome stage for the horrors that were still to come. Harbor Ridge was under siege, not from an external enemy, but from a monstrous transformation festering within its very heart. The warm, inviting houses now stood like silent specters against the backdrop of the town's growing terror. As nightfall descended, an oppressive dread blanketed the streets, transforming them into a labyrinth of fear. Amelia found herself battling a sense of despair as more townsfolk succumbed to the horrifying transformation. The once friendly faces of her neighbors were now distorted into grotesque parodies of their former selves. Despite her medical prowess, Amelia felt helplessness creeping in, the unknown nature of the infection leaving her at a loss for a solution. Across town, in the seclusion of her workshop, Jenna was fervently scourging the UFO wreckage for answers. The haunting echoes of her tools against the alien metal rang out in the silence, a desperate symphony of defiance against the impending doom. Sheriff Joe, meanwhile, tried to keep the peace, his strong demeanor offering some comfort to the frightened townsfolk. His steely gaze constantly scanned the ominously silent streets, a reassuring beacon amidst the growing chaos. Their ordeal took a turn for the worse when they discovered Edgar had vanished. The science teacher-turned-monstrosity was no longer in Amelia's makeshift clinic. Panic surged through them like a tidal wave. The transformed townsfolk were no longer just infected. They were now unpredictable, mobile threats. In the dead of the night, strange noises began to echo through the town, a chilling symphony of unknown alien calls. The once peaceful night was now punctuated with these nightmarish sounds, a grim reminder of the horrors that lurked in the darkness. During a late-night investigation, Joe and Jenna stumbled upon a horrifying sight in the town square. The transformed townsfolk, including Edgar, had gathered, their bodies casting grotesque shadows under the moonlight. They were not just aimlessly wandering, but seemed to be communicating in an alien manner, their actions orchestrated, hinting at a terrifying collective consciousness. With the chilling realization that the transformed townsfolk were not just victims, but potentially dangerous, the trio decided to quarantine the town. They were trapped in their own nightmare, facing an enemy that was once part of them. The once vibrant town of Harbor Ridge was now a haunting echo of its former self, teetering on the edge of oblivion. As they prepared to face the terrifying night ahead, they knew they were fighting not just for their survival, but for the very soul of Harbor Ridge. The darkness of the night held no comfort for them. It was now a playground for the unspeakable horror that their town had become. Harbor Ridge was gripped by the icy tendrils of fear, every street corner echoing the hushed whispers of its terrified inhabitants. The once cheerful sun now cast long, ominous shadows, a chilling reminder of the lurking monstrosities. The town was locked down, a helpless island amid a sea of tranquil wilderness, the line between reality and nightmare blurring with each passing hour. Amelia, Jenna, and Joe found themselves at the heart of the unfolding chaos. The horrifying knowledge that their neighbors, their friends, had turned into threatening alien entities was a bitter pill to swallow. The situation was spiraling out of control, each ticking second bringing them closer to a reality they didn't dare to imagine. In the makeshift clinic, Amelia wrestled with her rising despair. The alien mutation was a puzzle she couldn't solve, an insidious enemy that threatened everything she held dear. Every failed attempt to halt the transformation only fueled her determination. She dove back into her research, poring over every scrap of information she had on the alien ship and its deadly aftermath. Meanwhile, Jenna continued her dogged examination of the alien wreckage. Her hands, slick with cold sweat, moved over the bizarre bioluminescent substance, her mind whirling with theories and calculations. Her engineering expertise was being stretched to its limits as she attempted to decipher the workings of the foreign technology. Joe was the steadfast bulwark against the rising panic in the town. He patrolled the deserted streets, his presence a flickering beacon of hope amidst the growing despair. Every frightened glance from his townsfolk steeled his resolve, reminding him of the gravity of his duty. The trio's world was turned on its head when Jenna made a critical discovery. Among the remnants of the alien ship, she found what appeared to be a complex biochemical analyzer, a device potentially capable of deciphering the alien virus's makeup. With hope rekindled, Amelia and Jenna started working together, merging their medical and engineering expertise. The strange device hummed and flickered, casting an eerie glow as they began their frantic analysis of the alien pathogen. Outside, as Joe maintained his vigil, he noticed an unsettling change. The infected townsfolk were moving en masse towards the crash site, drawn like moths to a flame. As they moved, a chilling chorus of alien sounds filled the air, their bodies shimmering in the moonlight, hinting at a frightening transformation yet to come. As they raced against the clock, each passing second edged Harbor Ridge closer to a horrifying transformation. Their struggle was not just against an alien virus, but against the annihilation of their humanity, a battle for the very soul of their beloved town. Each heartbeat echoed their shared determination. They would not go quietly into the night. They would stand their ground and fight back against the looming darkness. The stars bore silent witness to Harbor Ridge's plight, their twinkling light a cruel contrast to the town's encroaching darkness. Night had turned into a period of dread, the infected townsfolk's eerie assembly near the crash site setting an unsettling backdrop. Inside Amelia's makeshift clinic, the biochemical analyzer hummed with alien energy. Amelia and Jenna, driven by desperate hope, plunged into deciphering the complex data that the machine spat out. The metallic scent of the alien device mixed with the sterile tang of medical antiseptic, adding a surreal edge to their intense focus. Meanwhile, Joe faced the growing menace head-on. Despite his calm exterior, fear gnawed at him as he patrolled the desolate town. The sight of his friends and neighbors, now grotesque hybrids, congregating at the crash site was more than disturbing. It was a blatant mockery of the peaceful life they once had. Amelia and Jenna's relentless efforts bore fruit as the analyzer unveiled the alien virus's structure. The pathogen was unlike anything they'd seen, complex and frighteningly efficient at reconfiguring human DNA. But amidst the terrifying revelations, a glimmer of hope sparked. The virus appeared to have a weakness, a potential point of attack. Simultaneously, Joe noticed a chilling change in the infected townsfolk. As they huddled near the wreckage, their bodies began to vibrate in sync with the ship's pulsating glow. It was as if they were undergoing another stage of transformation, one more alien and horrifying than before. With newfound knowledge and mounting urgency, Amelia and Jenna started formulating a plan to exploit the virus's weakness. The task was daunting and fraught with risks, but it was their only chance. Working round the clock, the duo began creating a makeshift serum, their hands steady despite the lurking dread. While the town succumbed to the terror of the night, within the clinic, a battle against the alien pathogen raged. Each deciphered code, every synthesized compound brought them a step closer to their goal, a counteracting agent to halt the viral transformation. As the dawn broke, casting ghostly shadows over the once idyllic town, they found themselves on the precipice of an unprecedented breakthrough or an impending doom. The weight of their shared hope and fear lingered in the air, a stark reminder of their desperate fight against time and the monstrous unknown. Daylight brought no relief to the beleaguered town of Harbor Ridge. The sun's rays, once comforting, now revealed the dreadful extent of the transformation that had gripped the townsfolk. The alien-infected individuals stationed around the crashed UFO stood in stark contrast to the familiar sights of the town, their grotesque forms a horrifying testament to the ongoing nightmare. Within the confines of Amelia's home, the situation was a whirlwind of desperate action. Amelia and Jenna, despite the fatigue that clung to them, worked relentlessly on their potential counteragent. The alien analyzer, now a beacon of their last hope, hummed in rhythm with their determination, its strange light flickering on their focused faces. Meanwhile, Sheriff Joe patrolled the silent town, his eyes never straying far from the gathering of transformed townsfolk. With each passing hour, their bizarre behaviors grew more pronounced, their alien sounds echoing ominously through the deserted streets. The once familiar faces were now unrecognizable, their humanity lost to the grotesque alien features. As Amelia and Jenna made strides in developing their counteragent, they faced an unexpected setback. They lacked a crucial compound, one that couldn't be found in their meager supplies. The revelation was a crushing blow, their glimmer of hope threatening to extinguish under its weight. Just when despair was about to take hold, Joe made a surprising discovery. A local farmer's greenhouse held a rare plant that produced the compound they needed. Despite the overwhelming dread, a spark of hope was rekindled. The trio understood the gravity of their situation. The race against time was far from over. It was entering its most critical stage. Braving the eerie silence, Joe ventured towards the greenhouse, the chilling tableau of transformed townsfolk ever present in his peripheral vision. His journey was a desperate quest, the fate of Harbor Ridge teetering on his success. Back at the clinic, Amelia and Jenna stood by the alien analyzer, their faces a mask of determination and apprehension. The machine's strange glow reflected in their eyes, an eerie light that belied the significance of their endeavor. The 11th hour was upon them. As Joe returned with the crucial ingredient, the trio embarked on the final stages of creating the counteragent. The sun dipped below the horizon, and an unnerving calm settled over Harbor Ridge. Amidst the growing fear, they clung to their shared resolve, ready to face the upcoming storm, their town's fate hanging precariously in the balance. As twilight descended upon Harbor Ridge, an eerie stillness enveloped the town. The monstrous hybrids clustered around the crash site stood silent, their glowing eyes reflecting the dying light. An ominous pulsating radiance emanated from the UFO wreckage, casting grotesque shadows on the transformed townsfolk. Inside the makeshift clinic, the final preparations for the counteragent were underway. The alien analyzer hummed intensely, resonating with the rising tension. Amelia, Jenna, and Joe, worn out but resilient, were a picture of determination against the backdrop of encroaching dread. The counteragent was a gamble, a desperate roll of the dice against the monstrous alien virus. As Amelia and Jenna worked meticulously, they knew that they weren't just fighting for their survival, but for the very soul of Harbor Ridge. Each movement, each breath they took echoed the stark reality. With the counteragent finally ready, they faced their biggest challenge yet, administering it to the transformed townsfolk. As the trio steeled themselves for what was to come, the town, cloaked in the shadows of twilight, seemed to hold its breath. In the tense silence, Joe made the first move. Carrying the counteragent, he approached the eerie gathering near the crash site. Every step was a test of his courage, his conviction. The hybrid's glowing eyes focused on him, their alien sounds echoing ominously in the chilling air. Back in the clinic, Amelia and Jenna watched anxiously. The chilling tableau of Joe amidst the hybrids, silhouetted against the pulsating glow of the UFO, would forever be etched in their minds. With a heart pounding like a war drum, Joe administered the counteragent. For a moment that felt like an eternity, nothing happened. Then, slowly but perceptibly, the transformation began to reverse. The alien features receded, giving way to familiar human faces, confusion and relief replacing the alien indifference. The counteragent was working. As the sun rose, the nightmare that had gripped Harbor Ridge began to dissipate. A horrifying spectacle of the previous night seemed like a distant memory. Exhausted but victorious, the trio stood at the heart of their resurrected town, their faces reflecting the dawn's soft glow. Harbor Ridge had survived its twilight. Its denizens, though scarred by the alien terror, were reclaiming their humanity, their town. The nightmare had passed, leaving behind a haunting legacy, a chilling reminder of their brush with a terrifying unknown. As the new day dawned, they knew they had more than survived. They had triumphed. They had stared down the face of alien horror, fought for their humanity, and emerged victorious, forever bound by their shared ordeal. Their battle was over, but their story, the story of Harbor Ridge and its twilight of humanity, was just beginning. And thus, we close the chilling saga of UFO Infectus, a tale of humanity's triumph over an alien terror, a reminder of the courage that prevails when faced with unspeakable horrors. This was no ordinary tale. It was a journey through the twilight of humanity, a testament to the resilience of the human spirit. Remember, dear listeners, in the grand tapestry of existence, the threads of the ordinary and the extraordinary are often intertwined, sometimes chillingly so. Thank you for joining us tonight on our scary stories. Stay vigilant, for the unknown lurks around every corner. Till we meet again, keep your eyes open and your senses sharp. Good night, and remember, the darkness is closer than you think. This is our Scary Stories signing off for tonight.